Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast on the 5th of December. Today we're joined by Mark Stephenson, Executive Chairman, and Neil Hutchison, Chief Geologist of Mila Resources. How are you today, gentlemen?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Excellent. So Mila recently resumed trading after a completion of the acquisition of its 30% in the Kathleen Valley Gold Project in Western Australia. Mark, could you tell us a bit more about how Mila Resources came about and your background, please?
Yeah, sure, Phil. Well, I've been a stockbroker for over 30 years and set up Mila really to capitalize on my ability to raise funds for smaller companies, and wanted to really raise the money I was meeting so many good geologists and they just didn't have the ability to get to that next level. So I raised the money really to find people that I could help accelerate their projects into development. Over my career, I've looked at lots and lots of projects, and I had a very good idea of the kind of criteria that I was looking for. You know, I wanted something with a very low risk with proven potential, and love Africa, etc. But for my first one, I really wanted to start looking at something with a safe political environment to be based in. And the third one, you know, really wanted a project that had the potential to deliver significant upside. You know, so many projects I looked at just were too small. And although this one is a postage stamp size project, it's got huge potential on the upside. And really, I just wanted this, you know, all wrapped up. I think the main criteria I really looked at the beginning is a management team. And I think with the guys that we found in Western Australia, I'm off to a very good start. And I think that came out with the announcement this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously great timing for the call today after the RNS stating the drilling has commenced with the objective of expanding the JORC resource in the southern area of the project, totaling I think it's 11,100 metres, as well as exploring the other two northern targets by drilling an additional 2,400 metres. So when can we really expect to see some of those assay results dribbling through?
Yeah, look, we've submitted our assays off to the labs. So we've got a couple of weeks yet to wait and receive. There is a big delay here in Western Australia with sort of the mining boom and the lack of persons and labour to manage a lot of these operations. But we've sort of found some good interstate allies, and we have cost effectively moved our samples, and it's now just waiting for them to be delivered back to us. But from what we're seeing already from the geological logging, and as you'll see from the photo in the drill core, is we're seeing everything we expect with the alteration, sulfides, quartz veining within the projected mineralized zone. So we have good hopes that it will return the sort of grades we are expecting and have already seen through the JORC resource work.
I noticed on one of the Bellevue Gold videos that was online, I think it was digging in dealers, that they did a presentation on that. There was an introductory video where they showed some of the elders and the tenements. Do you want to give us a bit of background about that and how it all fits in? Yeah,
sure. Look, this is all on Aboriginal land owned by the Joal Group, quite a very active Aboriginal corporation within the Wiluna Norseman district. And have been for a very long time. So they're certainly not new to dealing with mining companies. And certainly there's quite a well set up protocol and process through all that. Bellevue have done very well. They've engaged the elders and they do a lot of cultural awareness training and making sure that their employees are fully aware of the significance of the area that we're all working in. We sort of abut what they call as the Violet Range, which traditionally has been a very sacred Aboriginal storyline area. And there's a number of sites that actually sit just off our tenement and were unavailable. And this tenement was always was never granted because of the significance of where it sat. But what most people didn't explain to the Aboriginal group is normally you peg a square block and that square block covered a number of sites, but they were already covered by existing tenure. And when one of our colleagues sat down with the Aboriginal group and explained to them that we only had access to a little tiny funny shaped postage stamp in the middle, and that the sacred sites actually were off our license, so therefore we couldn't even touch them, they suddenly realised that that we were working in an area that was probably less of an issue than some of the other tenements that all these sites were around us. So having that discussion opened up a conversation and a relationship, and from there the tenement was granted. Now, we work very closely with the chairman of the Geologist group. He manages Yakabindi Station right next door to us. We rent ground off him for our core facilities. We use him and his family for all our earthworks. And at every stage, we bring him out to have a look and confirm what we can and what we can't do on the ground before we go to the Geologist group and book in our heritage surveys. So we're already quite confident that we are treading the ground very lightly and managing the heritage expectations to the best quality and abilities we can, and dealing with the right people. And as we go forward and we now develop into an exploration/mining company, we'll have a much closer relationship with the elders in a way that Bellevue have done them as well.
And would they presumably negotiate some sort of royalty from that, the ground itself and the project, if they were ever moved into production?
That's a typical thing in Western Australia, is, you come to an agreement with the landholders as to how you develop the land, where you put your waste dumps and your infrastructure, how you minimise disturbance, and clearly compensation in the way of a royalty as part of that. That's very common, and almost every mine site in Western Australia particularly does have that. So it's not anything that's a surprise for us.
So after reading the recent, I think it was investor presentation that was on the website, there was one standout comment that I quote, "The licence is contiguous to Bellevue Gold, one of Australia's most successful exploration plays." Can you elaborate a bit on what this potentially means, and is Bellevue's government well prospect connected?
Yeah, so Bellevue Gold Mine was a historic operation which has recently, over the last couple of years, developed an extremely large and almost one of the world's highest grade gold deposits. They're in the order of 3 million ounces at a grade of 10 grams. So a very impressive grade. And they're adding nearly 75,000 ounces per month just through their drilling program. So it's going to be an enormous project. And that sits immediately south of our projects. Government Well is one of their regional exploration plays, which sits off on the western side of our tenement, and that sits less than 2 kilometres off the side of our tenement. And you'll see from the map that we put out on the announcement is it trends directly towards our tenement, and what we have found is a blind deposit that sits in the same shear system as their government well, or part of their government well system. And if you actually get on their website, you'll see one of their maps that puts an arrow trending it straight towards our boundary. So it's not been drilled through that section. So there's a high chance that will all link up together. And they've announced some fairly good grades, and grades that we've intersected to date within our resource zone. We've got up to 8 grams gold, nearly 50 plus grams silver, and nearly 9% zinc. So we do have those high grade economic assays coming out of the system. And we're just hoping as we go deeper and wider with our drilling that we can also, get some more consistent and higher grades and develop something that could move into a mining project, which is ideally the end game.
So there's gold in that ground.
There's definitely gold in that ground. We're in the Wiluna-Nolesman Greenstone Belt, and basically it's a 40 million ounce plus gold system. And there's many plants all the way around us, gold mines that have produced multi-million ounce deposits. Bellevue's another one of them. And not whilst we're trying to say we're going to be a million ounce deposit, it gives us the confidence that even in with sort of a fairly small tenement package, is you can have high grade gold, you can have thousands of ounces, and we certainly believe we can meet the exploration target that we've defined, and hopefully with the extra targets we have up in that northwest and ones we haven't even found yet, that we can get to a substantial gold resource out there.
Yeah, there was a thing this week from Hutchison, I think it was, that they bought gold mine before production with a plant required for, I think it was about $100 US to $110 US per ounce. So would you imagine that in Australia, without the need for a plant, that the sort of dollar per ounce would be higher than that, or that's what we're talking about?
Oh, look, I couldn't comment on the actual dollar per ounce. It's not something I sort of keep a check on every day. But look, I think in Australia, people pay quite well for a well-situated project. And the reason I got involved in this project from day one was it was close to infrastructure, being the highways and the roads are right there. We're surrounded by lots of gold and nickel mines. You're right on a major highway where transport is continuously up and down. We have power. It's in a prime position that if we do build it up big enough, taking the gold to market would be, or someone else coming in over the top and wanting to acquire it would be a reality.
And what sort of size in terms of a JORC report do we need to get to for someone to come in and say, "Ooh, that looks interesting. I'll pay you some money for it"?
Look, we've got our exploration target up to 280,000 ounces. So our mission is to get it to at least there. I think my internal goal is I'd like to see 500,000 ounces, and whatever we get after that is considerable bonus. So in Australia, typically that sort of 500,000 plus is where people really start to pay some attention.
So if that is the case, even if we use I think it was Brazil figures, you're talking about 500,000 ounces times $100. So you're talking 500 million US for that in situ, if it's JORC.
Yeah, can I just come in here? I think if you look at the valuation report that we had, an independent one, we have for our prospectus, that's coming up initially with the amount of ounces we've got at the moment at £15 million for the asset. And now that's obviously for the 100% of the asset, and we're farming into 80% of it for an all-in price of about half that. So that kind of gives you the idea of the value in that area. Now, obviously, with only a very small amount of ounces in the ground at the moment, no one's really going to be interested in those ounces until we prove it up to a larger size. But that valuation that came in was fair and independent along those lines that you were talking about for ounces in the ground.
Yeah, so that was 21,000 ounces, was it?
Exactly, which is
hardly
worth reporting.
No, nobody's going to dig that up when it's only 21,000 ounces. Accept that.
But
that was sort of a proof of concept. We had drilled a limited amount of holes in a set grid pattern, and we wanted to know could it be JORCed and what it looked like. And the powerful thing in doing that, it told us that it was very good above 1 gram cutoff. It was all very mineralized. At a 0.5 gram cutoff, it made very little difference. So it tells us it's all higher grade gold, not low grade halo gold. And it allowed us to put a shape around it, which matched our geological interpretations, as it should, but it was very consistent, very linear, and very predictable. And that's what gave us the confidence to want to go out and further drill it, because when you've got a fairly simple ore body or a fairly simple system, it's a lot easier to work and explore. When they're complex and you can't JORC resource them, you're going to be in with a bit of trouble from the start. So we're very happy with just that small postage stamp based on the 10 holes that we had in the system, and every single hole had mineralization in it, and that's to me the big takeaway.
We started drilling today, and how long will that drilling take roughly?
Yeah, so look, we started a little while ago, so we've now got the first holes finished. So we've completed 1 diamond hole and 10 RC holes, and those samples have now been dispatched to lab. It's now wrap up time during December for our work crews, because they've had a massive year here in Australia. We haven't stopped. And the aim is to restart early January. Once New Year and that first week is over and done with, we'll mobilise everyone back to site and get started again. So we're just having a bit of a festive season pause right now.
When you restart then in January, how long is it going to take to do these 2,100 meters that are required?
Look, we've scheduled
11,000 meters, wasn't it?
Yeah, so look, we've scheduled 3 to 4 months for the entire program, which includes the northern drill holes, and subject to, obviously weather and ground conditions and things. But we're going to have a concerted effort for the next 3 to 4 months in the new year of fairly much continuous drilling. And assay results will be sent off hopefully weekly, and we'll be able to have a consistent trickle of results coming through, once the lab starts to put them out for us.
I guess value will be added as you meet those transaction milestones. So if once you fulfill that 11,000 meters or the drilling, then you'll hit the 50% target as per the presentation.
Yeah, that's correct. So we've staged it as what we call stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, as far as the drilling program goes. And that just basically quarters up our activity. So it means that at each end of each stage, if we're hitting the results and the geological interpretations make sense to us, we can very rapidly move to the next phase because it hangs together. If we find complexities or there's a big delay in assays or anything that sort of gets in our way, it gives us an opportunity to sort of pause for a little bit and divert the rig to probably like the northern area and then bring it back down once we get a handle on it. But the main thing is, at this stage, we plan to sort of continuously move from 1 to 2 to 3. And then stage 4 will be, as Mark explained earlier, the next phase of where we need to go to do the capital raise, as we've sort of met our original corporate targets. And decision point from there on is, do we continue to expand or do we go to infill and resource calculation?
The majority of the drilling, the 11,000 meters, is all going to be in the same area initially.
Yeah, so that'll all be part of what we call the coffee deposit. So the original work's all going to be there. We've got another 2,400 meters to drill at our northern Store Rock project. We haven't done any work up there other than soils and field evaluation and found some historic data on the old drill holes. So that's quite a new area for us, but 90% of the focus will remain at the Kofi resource area as we add value. That's where our biggest kick is going to be from. And then we'll move up once the RC rig's finished, its main step out work. We'll then send it up to the northern area and start our first regional exploration and see what that brings us.
So the historic drill results at the northern drill have been positive. There is gold there.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a number of shallow air core holes over a little ridge which had a soil anomaly. It's a long strike from the main road pit, which was mined by Aberfoyle in the 1990s. And they had quite anomalous grades ranging from 0.1 to 0.5 grams per gold throughout it. But our highest grade was 1 metre with 1.1 grams gold in it. Now, that's a significant anomaly in a geologist's language in shallow drilling. And so my interpretation is they drilled the wrong direction for the shear systems. I've spent a lot of time on that ground. I worked up there 15 odd years ago and have crawled all over that. So I've got a fairly good feeling of what things are doing up there. And so I want to turn the rigs around the opposite direction, drill the trend as optimal to the shear systems, where before they just drilled across the soil anomaly. And that should give us a much better understanding of what's happening there and what the shears are doing and the gold mineralization that's been intersected in the historic drilling, as well as leaching to surface and forming the big soil anomaly that we see.
And there's going to be some sort of magnetic study then done through those holes, the same as Bellevue used?
That's correct. So what we use is what we call downhole electromagnetics. It's where we charge the surface with electricity and we put a probe down the hole, and it's the feedback of electrical decay from any sulfide bodies that we detect by doing this. So if there's sulfides in the system, it retains the electricity and slowly lets it release, and we can read those measurements. So it works very well at Kofi deposit, where we have the sulfides, and you can see that in that piece of drill core we displayed. It's very similar to the Bellevue style. So the gold is associated with the sulfide mineralization. It's not locked up in the sulfides. So if we know we've got sulfide being detected, we have a very good chance that the gold is associated with it. So it gives us a third eye inside the ground where we normally can't see stuff. So downhole magnetics works extremely well in this style of mineralization. So yes, all our deeper holes will be using it. The shallower ones we can do visually, and we can track that ourselves, but the deeper holes allow you then to look further out beyond the drill hole where we don't know any information at all at this point.
So as you move forward then, how significant is the silver and did you say zinc as well?
Yeah, no, a good question. Silver and gold are commonly associated with each other, but we're getting some, unusually strong grades in there. So you can, when you create a doré or a gold smelt, is the gold and silver will go together, and then you can extract them out. And if the grades are high enough in your doré melt, is you get a credit back for that. Zinc, I don't know enough about the zinc mineralization within this system yet. We've still got a fair bit of work to do on that, but it's definitely in there, and it's definitely a pathfinder. And I think it has more association with us trying to understand how the geology originally fitted together when it was all sort of placed together. We're not so focused on the economics of that yet. We'll have to do a lot of metallurgical test work and other studies yet. But to me, we use it as pathfinders, what helps us to track and trace and follow the system. Even if the gold does eventually peter out, if we've still got the other mineralization, it still tells us that there's a good chance the gold will start up again.
I think there was some mention, Neil, about, was it lithium tantalum project in a similar region? Is that of any interest with you? And is there anything within the Coffee deposit that may be of significance?
Yeah, look, good question. To the north of us is Liontown's Kathleen Valley lithium resource. I rock chipped that when I was a geologist at Cosmos, and at the time it had no value to us. They were pretty rocks and useless to a lot of us. If I'd had the sense to peg it and the ground a bit later on, I could be a very rich man. But Liontown managed to do that, and now they have themselves basically a world-class lithium deposit on our doorstep. These tenements were actually initially pegged for lithium potential, and lithium's fairly zoned. So the work we've done to date suggests that the lithium, we're probably just outside the main zone, but we discovered gold on the Coffee anomaly. And so that's now our focus is looking at the gold. We'll never say never with the lithium, but I think at this stage, you need a very big deposit to make it economic. And I think with Liontown to the north, they've got more than enough on their plate at the moment that anything we find is probably not going to be of interest to them for the short term, immediate term anyway. So I think our mission is focus on the gold and build that up into a large JORC resource.
So just to recap, as it stands, the deal, if you like, was worth 15 million at 21,000 ounces of gold JORC report. The goal would be to be 280,000 ounces, which is 12-fold increase or more. And your personal aim is to have 500 ounces. Now, obviously, as you progress, there's going to be some dilution in the company because of the different financial situations that will happen as you take more of the project. Initially, 96 million shares, is it, that will be issued to take a further 30%. Can you give us a bit more information about that, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So this is all in how we've structured the deal, as Neil was saying, with 3 phases. So we're buying into this in the 3 stages. The third has gone when we raised the money and relisted. The next is when we finish this drilling campaign. They give another 25%. And we get the final 25% when we raise the money to look at the next phase. So hopefully everything's going very well and we'll be able to progress to that level. But that's reliant really on what comes out of the ground.
So the raise for the final part in timescale wise is likely to be when?
Late next year.
Okay, so we're talking about a 12-month cycle, really. This is what we want to be in. Yeah. And that raise will be so you can obviously carry on with the finances of the company and also put 1.5 million pounds of drilling in the ground, because that's what's required, I think.
Exactly, for the next phase. But once again, it depends what we find with the work Neil's doing. The whole plan can change, enormously. And but that's the minimum, that we need to put in to get that third phase. And obviously, the prices have been set. We don't pay any more for project than we've already put into it at the moment.
All good. So I would say good luck.
Well, thank you.
And I hope you find some shiny yellow stuff and some shiny silver stuff.
Look, if we do get some visible, we will certainly be taking photos and putting it in our announcements. So
that's right. Send it in the post. Never mind sending us a picture. Any nuggets above an ounce, I'll accept.
Okay. I think we're all hunting those, and as a geologist, I've been fortunate enough on most of my projects to see visible gold and find it, but I know there's a lot of geologists do go through their careers with never actually seen gold. But we are spoiled here in Western Australia, and I certainly think that Kathleen Valley, given its location and the grades that are surrounding us at Bellevue and Government Well and to the north of us, I'll be very surprised if we don't find visible gold somewhere in the system as we continue to drill.
So in a nutshell, it's a case of prove up the resources as much as you can, up to hopefully 500,000 ounces, and then put a big for sale sign in the ground, enticing any local suitors.
That is the beauty of the area. I mean, obviously we've got Bellevue right next door to us, but there are at least 5 other companies in the vicinity that would have an interest if we can get those ounces.
Okay, all good, gentlemen. And again, we wish you luck and keep us informed, and we look forward to having you back on when you have those chunks of gold in your hand.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, guys.
Mark Stephenson, Neil Hutchison, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
Well, that was a nice chat, wasn't it? Certainly an interesting one as well. I think as long as they can prove up those resources, then it could well be a for sale sign in the window.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the maths, it's a flyer, isn't it, really, when you look at it? I think in the end of it, they're going to have probably 500 million shares, maybe a few more by the time they pay the deal. We didn't really talk about the warrants, if you remember. There's warrants on there for 4.8p, which will raise them another 6 million, which actually means dilution in terms of them having to raise money for that third one is probably not that likely if they get that warrant money. And so that was quite interesting. But yeah, if you do the maths, even based on their lower estimate, 280,000 ounces, you're talking about $280 million valuation, I think. So yeah, that's a lot. But I don't think it's going to be a long game either, by the sounds of the way they were talking. It's a 12 to 18 month game to get the JORC and to then say, here we go, guys, we've got this much gold. So seems very probable that they're going to have a fair amount of gold. So it just depends how good it is with Bellevue, 10 grams a ton next door. Don't think this is going to be 10 grams a ton, but at the same time, anything over 1 to 2 grams a ton is going to be very interesting, I think, to anybody.
Other than that, how's your week been? I mean, it's been Omicron is doing the rounds, as we know. It's more and more cases cropping up in people in different countries around the world. America had one case and they the bed, and literally the market's just down and the negativity's there. But I mean, until we know more about the what the World Health Organization are going to actually declare on it whether it's whether it's obviously it's more transmissible, is it more virulent, are people going to get more ill from it than the previous Delta variant? Nobody knows. And I guess until we get that information, markets are really not going to get back to any sense of kind of stability. There's still sell-offs going on in the resource sector. Stocks are just massively undervalued. But I don't know whether we're going to see that Santa rally. I hope that we get that information is out there and puts the people's minds at ease, and then we see some kind of sense of normality back to the markets. But I'm not convinced yet.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, this is COVID is a influenza virus. That's what it is. That's what it's been defined as. So effectively, all of these different mutations, if it wasn't so being looked at so closely because of the whole COVID situation, we wouldn't even know it was happening. It's just another version of what has happened before. So press, governments, hysteria for what?
I think
it's
the concern.
bizarre.
I think the concern for a lot of the immunologists or the virologists is that this variant has mutated something like 50 times, was 50 mutations on it, and that is frankly scary to them. So I guess, as I say, until we get that information out there as to how virulent it is, how transmissible it is, then as I say, there's not going to be any calm in the markets until that point. So hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later, and then we can see maybe some sort of Santa rally come on. But one that was amazing this week and really has been the savior of the portfolio has been Ben's Creek, and obviously the news that they hit first coal. The videos online of the high wall miner actually bedding itself into the mine wall and actually pulling out that first coal onto the ground was phenomenal. And obviously it hit the 41, 42 pence mark from 10 pence on places. So it's done 300%, and it's around the 35p mark. So it's consolidating pretty well. Very happy with the progress of that one.
That's been the hero of my portfolio in the last couple of months, I have to say. Without it, I would be sadly very much further down than I already am. So yeah, Ben's Creek, the hero. And, I don't want to talk lyrical about it, but it really has just begun, because the potential here is just humongous. Financially, within 6 months, they should be annualizing over $100 million profit per annum. That's without getting a second high wall miner in. And, so that the amount of profit applicable could be like crazy. Also, Adam was talking about acquisitions that could possibly happen, which is obviously going to increase the amount of throughput. Probably done without costing them any money, just royalties on the go. So yeah, its potential is vast. I think it's headed to the pounds, not 40p, and not a long period of time either. Again, I think it's going to be one of the stocks of 2022 for sure. For me, this week a disappointment was definitely Mast. They were on last week, and it's a great story, especially in this market with the fact that there's instability going on and people not sure. This is electricity. This is producing electricity through gas peakers. They have to make a profit no matter what the gas price is. And they're going to continue to increase the amount of megawatts they have. So it's an absolute no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. It's like, how is it not going to be very profitable? Like, the risk involved is minute. They basically got the money. They're going to be buying the land to put the gas peakers on. They've got 3 already. But this whole COVID variant, nobody was listening, obviously, in terms of that, because nobody wanted to invest. So for me, that was an opportunity missed. And it's gone down to 9p now. So it's like £16 million valuation, which is ludicrous based on the amount of income that they're going to probably produce in the future. So that was a disappointment. A real positive for me was Chill Brands really starting to get some really good information out now. You've got the gummies now starting to be sold stateside all over the US as one of the products, as well as the tinctures, which I think is the oil. And today there was an RNS as well, or I should say Friday, because today's Sunday. with John Story confirming that he holds 13.72%. Granted, some more of it is in instruments that I presume means he doesn't have to pay tax on it, as opposed to holding the shares directly. But at the end of the day, he has confidence that he has 13.72% of the company. It is a very tightly held stock. As confidence starts to come back into the stock, it's going to go again quickly, I think, in my view, back up to the 17 pence there. We're not sure where it will go before Christmas, but I'm hoping well into the 20s at the very least. So that is my great white hope for the rest of December. What else, Phil? Anything else on the horizon for you?
Not really, no. I mean, just kind of keeping an eye on things positioned in stocks now, where obviously waiting on news flow, waiting on certain events, and just adding value to them and waiting for some sort of, as I say, sense of normality to come back to the markets, because I just don't want to be.
What about Vector Capital? That has quite a run this week as well, no?
Yeah, Vector Capital is just like,
considering the way the market's been, it did very well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally on like sort of 7 or 8 trades. It moves extremely well. There's not a massive amount of float around, because Agam holds, was it 76% or something like that between it and in his family. So obviously that was one that did move, and I think it's around the 52, 53 pence now, but the spread on it is quite large. But yeah, absolutely, it's a dividend paying stock. Got some dividends out of that earlier in the year, so that's another one to watch. But really, just the volume's that low at the moment that there's not much moving it. Extract Resources has been a bit of a disappointment. They've had some more results out, and it sort of languishes around the 4.8 mark. Cellular Goods is an interesting one. I mean, that on the news that they're about to launch the new products, or have launched the products, it hit the 11-12p mark, and now it's trading around the 7.8 pence. So it's unfortunately dropped back a lot, that one, recently.
Yes, there was some really quite massive news, I think is the best way to put it, on Conroy Gold this week in terms of JV. Massive amounts of money going to be piled into this for a potential 8 million to 22 million ounces of gold. The JORC is already there for a certain amount. I think it's 500,000 ounces. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But basically, the prices that are being quoted are sort of 60p and a pound in terms of the way the thing will move forward. It's being passed, I think, on the 22nd of December for the meeting. So yeah, and it's fallen back again. It was sitting 29p. It's fallen back to 25p. Just obviously some profit takers maybe from the ones who bought around the 21p. But yeah, that one for me is a goer. We've had feedback on before. Feedback is basically languishing now because all the flippers from the raise at 0.7, they're still flipping away there because they're still making a small profit. Once that goes, then should be very interesting. We're looking at the market, and overall, it's pretty depressing. But now is the time to look at the shares that are holding their value or even increasing, because they're the ones, in my view, in the long run, are going to do very well. Because if you're holding your value or going up in this market, something's happened and something is good.
The cliched, isn't it? Warren Buffett, he uses the phrases, you hear him touted all the time on forums and on these Telegram groups. And the one that always strikes me certainly in this fear time with the Omicron and all the propaganda and all the BS that we're fed from these news channels is be greedy when others are fearful. And I think that is the right mantra to have. If you've got cash on the sidelines and you can buy some of these bargains and literally be greedy, then you're the one who's going to make the money in the long run. Yeah, needless to say, I mean, it could continue to retrace and we could see them hit even lower levels from here. But if you've still got the cash and you're intelligent with your cash, then there is some serious money to be made. because there's a lot of upside in these stocks, and there's specifically the ones that we generally talk about and we get the message out on. Mast is a good example of a stock that's going to be revenue generative. The EBITDA projected figures on there with their 3 sites is going to be quite large. Energy's in demand, as we know, gas peaking, as you say, and the power reserves there, in this country where demand is so high for electricity, and we're seeing outages on a frequent basis, then yeah, it's a utility type company. So look at that when investing. And also feedback, yeah, they're not particularly revenue generative at the moment, but if you look at what the potential is there for the rollout of the Bleeper box and of their care locker product, then you'll see that there is real value in this company going ahead.
Yeah, it's only going to take 1 or 2 contracts from the NHS and bang, isn't it? It's going to be massively in profit, I think. So they're not small contracts that they're going to get on. It's tens of millions of pounds that they're going to get with 80% EBITDA on everything that is signed. So if they sign a £20 million NHS deal, they're going to make £16 million of EBITDA. Current market cap 21 million, or maybe less even at the minute. I don't know. 21 million. It's not a big risk if that's the case. And the last one I think I'll mention anyway is Cloudbreak. They had a webinar themselves this week. It was very interesting. Kyler Hardy, very switched on guy in the resources sector, seems to know everybody and been all over the world. And the geologist seems to know his stuff, and not only know his stuff, but financially very astute in terms of the geology of the things. What was his name again, Phil?
Rory Cutler-Loughlin.
Rory will do. Okay, yeah, Rory, great guy, and I think really guiding that company in the same way as Kyler. I mean, Kyler's heavily invested, and there's going to be some exciting things, I think, going forward in that. Valued at nonsensical price. I think it's 6-7 million pounds. I think it is, and it doesn't make any sense for not only the assets that they already hold, but the potential they've got in the lithium space, in the copper space, in the gold space. There is a multitude of different things they've got. 16 different projects going through exploration, with over $8 million budgeted next year already to be spent on those projects that they don't have to spend. That's their partners are spending that. So how do you value that at £7 million? It's bizarre. And they've got royalties. They've got this triangular situation where they've got royalties. They've got the stock that they hold of all the different companies, and they've got the cash flow and the deal flow that they've got from the different deals that they're doing on a regular basis. So it's going to be a very news heavy situation. And yeah, I think when we did the stuff earlier in the year, we had a valuation of that of 4.5 to 5p. And I don't change my mind on this, and it's 1.8p at the minute. So as Phil said, there's some serious bargains out there.
So one I will mention was the news that we had from Hydrogen Utopia International that they'd signed a LOI, a letter of intent, with the city of Simitli in Bulgaria for waste to hydrogen to help phase out fossil fuels. Now, as you probably know, I've heard in the past, we were involved with the pre-IPO for this company, and they'll shortly be listing on the Aquis exchange, I think on the 17th of December. So if anybody would like to take part in the actual IPO, then you can reach out to us on the email admin@thesundayroast.net. That's admin@thesundayroast.net. And we can give you some more information on that. It'll probably close on Wednesday of next week. So, do get in touch, and because we would need to act pretty soon. But yeah, it looks good. I mean, Howard White just announced yesterday in an interview that he would be putting £1 million of his own money into this IPO as well. So that if that isn't a sign of confidence in this, then I don't know what is. But yeah, certainly looks good. They've obviously working with Linde as well. Linde, who are one of the biggest companies in Europe in terms of syngases. So yeah, absolutely. It looks set to fly when it lists this month.
They're only going to raise about £3 million. £3 to £4 million maximum. And I think they've got most of the money already, if not all of it. 1 million, obviously, as you said, is coming from Howard. So really there's going to be, because it's very tightly held, 70% of it is held by management. Alexandra has 47%, and a few of the other people on the board also hold, and now Howard's going to hold. So you're going to have the whole market chasing £3 million of HUI in terms of stock. That's only 40 million going to be at 7.5p. So if this doesn't go, I'll be very, very surprised, because most of the people who've bought in are believers or PHE shareholders who also believe and also will benefit PHE as well. PHE is valued at 185 million, I think it is. HUI is going to list for between 30 and 35 million. You do the maths. HUI will get 4 times the amount of income that PHE will receive for each DMG unit that is put into commissioned. So how do you work that one out? I don't know. And it looks like Poland in Conan is going to be where the first one will go. So yeah, it's exciting times. I think this could be the Christmas present. And also, I've said it already, it could be the share that keeps on giving in 2022. I really think it could be quite an exciting journey.
On that note, I'll talk to you in the week, I guess, and have a good weekend, the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, all the best. God bless, and speak to you soon.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.